Mr. Sazel, it's a delight to have you again on Good Morning Nigeria.
Always a pleasure. Thank you.
Also here with us in the studios, regular on Good Morning Nigeria, Ezenwa Nwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reform and convener Say No Campaign Nigeria. Mr. Nwago, delight to welcome you to Good Morning Nigeria.
And also here with us in Abuja studio is Dr. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, a public affairs analyst. We're also glad to have you join us this morning.
Thank you very much, Kiran.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm sure, of course, you already have the stories in the news, and we just took a bit of it also in the background. It appears that for a number of the, shall we say, leading political parties in the Anambra governorship election due to hold in November this year, for one candidate returned in the primaries, you appear to have another candidate returned by another faction of the political party. This is something that we have seen a number of times in our polity, and we know what the consequences are. But help us put these issues in context, beginning with Ezenwa Nwago, who of course is a veteran of various election primaries and election proper. What is it that we are seeing unfold in Anambra?
Thank you. Good morning again. I think we've shouted ourselves hoarse on the issue of the lack of internal party democracy and what it means for, what it means eventually for our polity. It beats any self-respecting person to find why it's just difficult to organize primaries. We hold the electoral management body accountable for whatever issues that arise from. But just to conduct your own party primaries, you would have challenges. The first challenge is what kind of process? This process, we are going into voter registration exercise now. After that, we will publish names of voters in a voter register that can be seen, that can be challenged. We go into political party primaries without a delegates list that you and I can, on the touch of our whatever, see those who are going to be participating in these primaries ahead of time. That will not happen. So you just have a situation in which it is only the players that know who the delegates are and what form of process. The process that their constitution have determined will not be followed. At the end of the day, that is why you have this crisis. So except we begin to put the kind of oversight pressure that we put on other institutions, on the political parties. For instance, on this voter registration, INEC is going everywhere talking about the conditions for registration, who qualifies, who doesn't qualify. The political parties are quiet. They don't tell you anything. It's our business because they say, oh, if you are not a member of the political party, we should know because at the end of the day, the quality of the leadership recruitment process is as good as the outcome. If you have this kind of situation that is going to, trigger court processes, at the end of the day, Anambra is already very, very known for that. It will go to Supreme Court. At the end of the day, you just will not be able to. So it is a wider challenge for the political parties. The things you want to hold other people accountable for, you should be able to do it internally. If there are people who have violated the process, we should be able to see sanctions internally by the political parties. So our expectations of leadership must start with the recruitment process, with the political parties' vanguard in terms of, these primaries. And the show of, the kind of example that they show is diminishing for all of us, really.
All right, let's bring in Oluwole Osaze-Uzi here, who I was a former director of voter education and publicity. So what unfolded in Anambra State did not come as a surprise to some people like you who are conversant with peculiarities of Anambra State election, not just primary, but even major elections. So what, in your opinion, really, happened? Is there a repeat of what we have witnessed over the years?
Thank you very much. It is deja vu. It really is deja vu. But it's not peculiar to Anambra, by the way. Even in the presidential election, if you recall, in 2019, a couple of parties had issues. I think the SDP, if I recall correctly, they were in court. And the case went right up to the Supreme Court, involving the primaries. I recall that I think it was the former Governor's Excellent Donald Duke and Jerry Garner were at loggerheads about who was the rightful presidential candidate. Obviously had her own problems with her party, that she was even disowned by the party. Was she pushed? Did she fall, or was she pushed? That issue came up as well. It's a recurring decimal in our politics, sadly. Anambra, 4 years ago, we had the same problem. Sometimes it starts, gestation is the control of the party structure. It starts from there, but geared always towards who will be the delegates, who will be the special delegates, who will be the statutory delegates when it comes to indirect primaries for the governorship. Even without that, you also find that when you have direct primaries, there's still a problem. As Ezenwa has very articulately put it, you have this issue, you don't have a register. You say you want to do direct primaries. You have two ways of doing primaries, direct or indirect. Indirect, there are statutory delegates. Most of the party constitutions have statutory delegates and special delegates elected because the law says you should do it by democratic means. So they start projecting years before primaries are due. Let me control the primaries. Let me control the levers of power in the party. And when I do that, then I control who becomes whatever in the selection process of leadership in whatever level, whether it's governorship, whether it's National Assembly, or State Assembly, whatever else. If it's direct primaries, hardly any party has an up-to-date register of its members. And it's part of what INEC was insisting on. You cannot insist. We give you the register of voters who are entitled to partake in election at least 30 days before the election. INEC does that so that you know who are those qualified to participate. And that covers 84 million people and the whole country. Now we're talking of one state, Anambra. How many? I don't think any party has 250,000 registered members. So if you don't have, and these are the building blocks, these are the fundamentals of every democratic setting. If you don't know, if you cannot ascertain those who are entitled to partake, then you cannot have a democratic outcome. You cannot have a fair outcome. So it's happening in Anambra. It happened in Imo, recall. That is why once who lost the APC, was he an APC candidate? Was he not the APC candidate? Every state, you can use examples from every state. It's particularly heightened now probably because what you call the major political parties are involved. So there's more searchlight being beamed. But as everyone says, we should look at all the parties, so we should look at all circumstances and all elections. This must be addressed. Sadly, or well, maybe somebody is not sad, legislation might have to come in. And I'm aware that part of the electoral reform bill before the National Assembly now attempts to regulate how you conduct your primaries. Ordinarily, these are political issues that should have been left to the political parties, if only as drivers of democracy, they will insist on taking basic democratic norms. The political parties, being drivers of democracy, if you don't have internal party democracy, you cannot have democracy in a larger society. It follows.
All right, Olawale, thank you very much. Abdurrahman Abu Hamisu, what's your take on what's unfolding in Anambra ahead of the elections?
Well, it's the usual pattern that we used to witness, and it has been costing Nigeria huge sums of money as well as energy. Remember that after elections, issues around internal party democracy that was lacking usually made its way to the courts. And before you knew it, INEC would be asked to either reconduct the elections after the election that has been conducted is voided. Anambra is not an exception. We've seen that in Zamfara in the last election. It played out to the extent that after the elections and a candidate emerged on the platform of APC, that very particular candidate lost its seat, and the second party emerged. In Bayelsa State, it equally happened. And these are all pre-election matters, not election matters that affect the conduct of election by INEC. But the mismanagement of the primary election process. And I want to say that it is deliberate. Those that are doing it knew exactly what they are doing. You can't tell me that as a leader of your party, you don't know what you're supposed to do. One of the requirements of a party is to have membership registration, so that you know the number of your members. Members equally have a membership card. So I don't know. It beats my imagination when we say we have factions in one party conducting parallel primary elections. It's not as if it's not possible. We're seeing it, but it is an aberration. And it must be seen as an aberration. It's a show of shame as far as I'm concerned, because as matured people, they are supposed to provide people with platform, a peaceful platform for members of the party to elect those that are supposed to represent them in an election where various parties will compete. People choose to amplify their personal interests and use their own personal interests as a thermometer to gauge the entire process and how things are supposed to go. Because if you are for public interest, if you are for the interest of your party, you are for the interest of your state, the state you want to govern, you must not take any action that will undermine the electoral process that will lead to chaos. Because as it is, one other fundamental issue that has come up is the influence of money in the process, to the extent that even the party members are saying we don't want money politics. So it is all about what some persons feel they can get from the process, and then they want to control the process and ensure that the person they want, that they are comfortable with, emerge, not the person the people want. And that is a disdain for the same people you want to govern, the same party you represent, and then the entire state that you feel you want to govern. So this disdain must be tackled, because if you respect the people, your work as the chairman of the party is to ensure you act like a father. And how does a father act? Everybody is your own, and the rules and regulations governing your party, either by the constitution of the party or any other special instrument that the party designed before the primary election, is adhered to. But when you have your personal interest, and your personal interest is in opposition and is clashing with the interest of the party, then you have a problem. And the problem is what we are seeing happening not only in Anambra State, but these states that we've mentioned.
All right, thank you. Back again to Ezenwa Nwagu. Specifically speaking now, APC, for instance, selected a governor of a state to champion the cause of organizing primaries in Anambra State. And he did what he did and came up with a result. Yet other members of the party, including the leader of the party in the state, in the person of the Minister of Labor and Employment, said, look, there was no primaries. Now, on Abga, the governor of Anambra State is the leader of the party in Anambra State, and they organized what they termed adequate and well-organized primaries, where Soludo emerged. Yet there is a faction. This issue of factionalization after primary election has taken place, what do you think is the cause of that? As a matter of fact, it's only in one party in Anambra that there was no YPP, that produced Ifeanyi as their own governorship candidate. So what really plays out, in the sense that it's always when the issue of primaries comes back, factions start existing.
Well, for me, I think I can locate the roots in just what you said now. Extraneous influences ambush party administration. and then drive their own interests, and then as against the party interests. So I don't know in the constitution of the APC where there's a position called leader of the party. This is the aberration, and we keep talking about it because until we address that, there is the leader of the party is the chairman of the party in Anambra State. So when you are a minister and you sit in your office and parade yourself as leader of the party, that's an aberration. And I told you, we've had this discussion. We know where it came from. It came from the ambush of party administration by chief executives who now started bringing party meetings, party engagements to government house. By that, they infused the idea that if you are the governor, you are the leader of the party, your wife is the leader of the women wing, the local government chairman took it. Everybody, the minister takes it. So there is somebody who in the PDP who is not in the party structure, former governor, who is also claiming to be leader of the PDP. So this play of power by extraneous interests that are not within party administration is also responsible for the conflict that you are seeing. People have had their time. They will not allow processes, the real processes, to go on. They continue to exert that influence and cause the kind of crisis that we are seeing. That's number one. The second one is ownership. And we have had this conversation. Who owns the political parties? Who are the real owners of these political parties? So the stakeholdership within the party is flawed in the sense that the people themselves, for them to come to the primaries, they need transport money. For them to come, they need accommodation. They will be served food. They will be given T-shirts and musicians. All of those things, the driver, the person who provides that money, that transports you.
The logistics.
Thank you very much. Has already eroded your power as a stakeholder within the political party. So that's significant because at the end of the day, the candidates and their godfathers who drive these processes are the ones who eventually determine what is. And then Anambra situation is that there are multiple godfathers. So it's not like in the state where you have one man calling the shot. There are people who you don't hear their name, the kind of resources that they can throw into a process. So it's about who are you. Because you have been this and that, then you want to think you can determine this process for us. That conflict is resolved by these extraneous influences that I talked about. If we will allow party administration for people to even make a career in the party, because you go to other places, you see people who have worked in the Republican Party for 40 years, for 35 years. They are making a career, growing in that place, and then they can determine processes that drive that political party. But as we speak, there are people sitting as governors who determine what happens in Anambra. There's some other minister who will sit down, who may not necessarily even be from Anambra, who is right there playing. And you also have a 2023 going on. The influence of who becomes what in 2023 is also manifesting in the off-cycle elections that we are seeing. Because there are also extraneous interests that are driving control within, wanting to hold those platforms, wanting to hold those states, and that is why you are seeing this crisis. So, but we must inoculate the parties from these extraneous influences and build we are not just coming from somewhere. We had the PDP, for instance, when they started. They started what you call People's Democratic Institute, where they were supposed to be training their party officials and building a career. We ambushed those things. People came, scattered all those things. The PDI is dead now, it's not functioning. So nobody makes a career. So the man who is assistant national something of the party, what is the party, is a candidate of an interest that is not even within the party platform. Then secondly, even the new parties that we are talking about. So, for instance, the new parties are not playing in Anambra because the resources to engage in that serious manner is not there. So you are going to see a conflict of this extraneous interests within Anambra and those outside of Anambra trying to determine what happens there. And that is why you are seeing those conflicts.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ezenwa. I mean, the issues you just highlighted again relate to political party management.
Yes.
And it's a matter that has engaged us here on Good Morning Nigeria from time to time. We'll, of course, return to that. I just want to bring in again Oduwole Osaze-Ozie. Well, look, INEC has an observer or monitoring role in political party primaries ahead of elections. So you will explain that to our viewers to say, look, this is what INEC does. But we also know from experience that when there are factions, when there are so-called parallel primaries, it is the one that INEC decides to observe or monitor and report on that will be deemed to be the authentic or genuine primaries. It must be a nightmare, I suppose, for INEC to ascertain the authentic faction of the party. Because sometimes, to be honest with you, unless you are really interested in the affairs of a political party in a particular state, sometimes they take these matters right up to the Supreme Court. At one point, it's somebody with a long cap. Another point, somebody with a long cap. All kinds of names. This one is the authentic chairman. The other one is not the authentic. How does INEC deal with all of these conflicting issues and then arriving at a considered decision, maybe perhaps on the basis of judicial authority, to say that this is the right faction, this is the primaries considered by this one that we are going to, and what will be the implication?
Thank you. I don't think it's usually a case of having difficulties in knowing which is the right faction. INEC doesn't even recognize factions. It deals with the properly constituted authorities in the party. And by the virtue of the Constitution, political parties are supposed to register, are required to register at least at the national level, who the party executive, governing national executive committee of every party is registered with INEC. So at any given time, we know that. The crisis really comes when somebody purports to remove one or more members of that committee. Sometimes they follow the laid down procedure as required by law and their own constitution. Quite often they don't. And administratively, INEC looks at it and says, that is why, for example, the law says you should give INEC notice, at least 21 days notice, if you intend to do some things like conduct primaries, remove an officer, and those kind of things, or conduct elections, or whatever elections into party positions, so that at least INEC is prepared and also knows. And after you do that, submits its own report, and when you now bring a list to change whatever you are, the registered members of the executive, it looks at it to see whether it tallies with its own report and things like that. Sometimes it doesn't tally, and we say, no, this is not what happened. We cannot accept this. Unfortunately, as a regulatory body, we're talking of party management, we're also talking of party regulation, two issues. Management, no problem. But as a regulatory body, the Constitution and the laws does not give powers to INEC to really wield the big stick or do certain things that most regulators will have. So very often, and then again, the complication actually comes when they go to court. So judicial intervention complicates matters in the sense that conflicting orders of court are the bane of party management. So you have courts of coordinate jurisdiction coming and giving conflicting orders. A says deal with B and C. Z says deal with X and Y of coordinate jurisdiction. Which one does INEC follow? That's where the complexity actually comes. Regardless of whether INEC thinks this is right or that, it cannot pick and choose. And usually it's a litigant in all those cases, right, even if it wasn't. But you must, the rule of law tells you that you must obey court judgments. But what happens where you have two conflicting judgments? So that is the complexity that we have. And often, to play safe, INEC says, okay, well, the process is in court, let the court determine. That is the way we have structured it in accordance with our constitution and the rule of law. So whoever the judiciary says is the authentic faction to deal with, INEC will accord them that recognition because there's judicial pronouncement on the issue. So, and often it has to run its course because sometimes the high court, there are conflicting judgments, you have to wait, or orders, you have to wait for a superior court to overturn one of those. And it does take a while. And sometimes even the superior court judgments gives room for some ambiguity, let me use that word. So, for example, in Anambra, recall 4 years ago when this studio came to discuss this thing severally, where the Supreme Court said recognize a particular set of people and that they have a tenure of 4 years. The National had purported to set up a caretaker committee, not recognizing those people. But now, who was to conduct the primaries? They claim that they have a role to play in the leadership recruitment process. It's contrary to previous Supreme Court decisions, which says no, it is the National that conducts it. And sometimes the National will say, I won't deal with that one that the courts have pronounced is the authentic one. We'll set up a parallel one, or we'll set up a caretaker committee. These are all the complexities which the election management body has to deal with. And it is a big problem. It confuses the election management body, it confuses voters, it confuses all stakeholders. So we will come back to who am I voting for? Who is the rightful candidate? Mm-hmm. Who am I voting for?
It's a nightmare.
It is a nightmare to everybody, to all stakeholders. So even when you report, who are you going to report? I like the clever way the media in Nigeria now reports. They say the factional chairman. In the meantime, there's only one chairman of a party. The factional chairman, factional secretary. Sometimes the committee might be split down the middle. There's some on this side, some on the other side. And each faction purporting to suspend or expel the other ones. It's a problem. It's a nightmare.
Just like Anambra as it is, Abia, for instance, a section of the party members, they have actually said that Solido has been expelled, from the party, or suspended from the party. At least the candidate has been, so to speak, elected as the standard bearer of the party in the state. So it goes on and on. Let's bring in Dr. Abu Hamisu once again. That this issue that has been raised here by Ezenwa, talking about poor party management, control of the party, those who have the capacity, the financial capacity, to foot the bill when it comes to some of the activities of the party, who always want to say, look, I am going to dictate the tone because, of course, I am paying the piper. Right. Now, some of the parties, about 2 of the parties, have actually nominated some persons to be members of election resolution committees. Right. Now, in your understanding, how can this be resolved after all said and done? Because as it is now, we're not sure we have any authentic standard bearer for all those parties apart from YPP.
Well, I'm afraid once again we have a long way to go. And I bet you this is going to end at the Supreme Court. Right from day one, I think what my older brother Ezenwa maybe forgot to add, it's not that having interest to protect is bad, but pursuing such interests within the confines of the law is what is lacking. So the so-called party elders and leaders, as he rightly pointed out, has these feelings that give them a sense of impunity, that we could do anything and nothing will happen. And because of this sense of impunity, they go all out, mobilizing resources to slug it out. So most of the things that you see that play out before the camera are things that are prearranged, predetermined, and the outcome is known. And if I know that I was not going to win in a situation of impunity where we know that we are not playing by the rule, factions are deliberately created in order to add to the Supreme Court, where most of our elections are determined at the court, not even at the count of the ballot. And that is why majority of the players, knowing fully well that they have one option left, and that option is the Supreme Court or the courts of law, they deliberately create this faction in order not to imperil their own chances, because the stakes are too high for them to let go. And so they do everything within their powers to say just the way we do in this country, even when there is hold up. If I cannot go, then I will not allow anybody to go. And then we block all avenues that we can use to maneuver. And then that is exactly what is happening in the political party. Majority of them knew that, okay, from the arrangement, as someone rightly pointed out, from the extraneous persons of factors or leadership that has come to position or project their own interests within the affairs of the party from elsewhere, are doing in order to win the election, those that feel cheated will not allow them to just ride roughshod on them, and then they go organize their own elections and declare their own result, knowing fully well that there is one avenue that is left, which is the court. And the confusion the court used to bring has already been highlighted by Mr. Uzi. So it's a deliberate thing, it's a calculated thing, but the most fundamental wrong with the entire process is not playing by the rules, because everybody feels it is their right to be there and they can manipulate their ways, they can do anything and nothing will happen. So if there are no sanctions, if there are no consequences for actions that have been taken, if we condone all the things that we are seeing, where some few persons come together, organize whatever they want to organize, and then we legitimize it by, okay, giving it that nomenclature in the form of recognition, factional leader this, factional leader that, we are legitimizing them. And that adds to the confusion and adds to the problem that we cannot solve. So the starting point is to ensure that there are consequences. But again, if you talk, the party will say it is our internal problem. So what is your business? It's our business, because when the crisis will start, it will affect us. For instance, God forbid, if there is any protest today that leads to us and maiming and killing of people, what have you done in Anambra State? It's insecurity you are bringing upon the people. And the worst of it all is that the people need peace in order to go about their normal businesses. Some persons are not even concerned about the party primaries. They don't even want to know we want to govern Anambra State, but they want peace in order for them to pursue their interests. So it is important that going forward, we hold certain persons accountable for their actions. If we cannot do that, this impunity will not stop.
Okay, thank you very much, Abu Hamisu. Let's can we attempt some sociology of the issues around the Anambra governorship election? What is so juicy, if I may ask, that you are having these various factions conducting their own primaries and then declaring their own candidates to say, look, for each of the major political parties, two, each. What is so significant? I we know that the position of a governor is prestigious, but it also means a lot of hard work. Well, what makes it so juicy that, it becomes almost a do or die thing? I mean, does it have anything to do with what happened from 2003 when Ngige, whose name we have earlier mentioned, got put into office by Chris Uba and other political godfathers, and then of course we saw what the judgment outcome was in 2006. What is it about Anambra governorship election that makes it so contentious? Although we know we have same things in some other parts of the country.
Well, I think first is to situate the transactional politics that we are involved in as a people. Anambra, you have money, you have deep pockets, but your deep pocket does not provide you free access on the road that the governor has, for instance. Many rich people. So you get stuck on the overhead bridge, with all your... So the privileges, the perks of office is coming to that point where, look, yes, with all your money, this governor can decide to relocate you completely. So we are dealing with that. And it's not just in Anambra. We are dealing with a situation in which many more people, they tell you, collective individual wealth is not enough, that they want to create collective wealth. I've heard all those kind of things. But it really is about that transaction. It's about much, even for the other people who are staking money, it's about contracts. It's about more money. It's about more money. The state is the biggest custodian of resources. And so if you have access to it, not just that you have influence, you also have access to, contracts and other things. So for the business person, they've come to find out that first you can even take these jobs and not do it, and nothing will happen. It can be settlement. And if you follow the trajectory of what happened in the particular cases that you cited, if you follow what happened, you see that it's an investment. If I support you every month, you will give me 200 million. It's documented. What I'm telling you is documented. So if you make 200 million every month, there is no business. I don't know that business you will do in Nigeria that will be giving you 200 million every month. So
In a year, 2.4
4
billion.
4 billion. So it's transactional. That's basically what it is. It's not a benevolent act. It's not for public good. It's about investing. It's much more investing. And you know that once you have that transactional mindset, let me shock you. In one of the elections, we were returning from Sokoto for an engagement, and Anambra was having primaries. A limousine came to the tarmac to pick somebody who is going to Anambra for primary to conduct primaries from Sokoto. For everybody involved, for the political parties, it is transactional. We don't like to say it. These committees, the people that will set, if you see how they are chased round the country, round everywhere, to get them to do things, because at the end of the day, you know that if you support somebody who gets this office, or you eventually get this office, it is much more money for you. So that's the mindset that drives what we are talking about. It has nothing to do with even the ones who claim that they are so rich that they don't care about anything. Then it now comes to that point where, why the desperation? If you are doing so well in the things that you are doing before, that you now want to help the people, why do you want to cause crisis to help the people? If it has nothing to do with, if it's about helping the people, you've made some money, so you can give scholarships,
Philanthropy.
you can build hospitals, you can build roads. The access to the public till and the lack of sanctions that follow that access is the reason why you are seeing the preponderance of interest.
I mean, I sometimes hear this mentioned. Uzi, I'm sure you also would have heard this mentioned, that some of these money bags, not just money bags, people who are important, feel that it also adds to their prestige index, that they have access to the government house. If I say access, not necessarily to go and get contract, that they can drive in at any time, and then see the governor. If the governor is even in an executive council meeting, they will say XYZ is waiting for you in your office, and then he leaves the escort chamber to come and see you. I don't know.
The point is that
Some of them don't even go to government house. They sit back, they use their phone, and they use their phone where they are, and call the governor. There are people surrounding them, and they call him that say, "Come, yeah, I'm waiting for you. I need to see you now." And the governor drives.
You made reference to the election that brought in Ngige, into power. Anambra is peculiar in the sense that, like you said, there are deep pockets in that part of the country, and that they're prepared to play a role politically and otherwise. That's why the question I put to Hamisu, I was talking about people who sponsor the political parties. But in this country, I don't understand why a political party will be bankrupt as a party. Why should individuals now be the ones that are sponsoring political party activities like primary elections? This is where, like in Anambra, it does places that are, look, if the party does not have resources, some persons could say, look, we can fund the party, the campaigns and what have you.
No, they don't fund the party, sir. They don't fund the party. Let's
party activities.
No,
like
they
elections.
don't fund it. They don't bring this. This is an investment. Until you realize that it is more an investment.
Exactly.
They have no business investing in party. They invest in the election. The election and the party, they are not the same. Then secondly, there's a point, 2-point-something million people are registered voters in Anambra. Anambra has never hit 400,000 voters in any election. That's also so no governor has been elected by 300,000 people in at least in this transition. No. And it has over 2 million registered voters. We are not paying attention to the fact that there is, so the play in Anambra is even very concentrated. It's not democratic in the sense in which 2-point-something million people registered, and then 200 and something people elect a governor. There must be a challenge, because we must interrogate those figures and find out why the wider populace are not even interested in what they are doing. Does it have to do with the kind of politics, this kind of cantankerous politics that we are seeing within the internal party? And then eventually, during the elections, you also see control. You see this whole control process. So does it does it make the people not to be interested? Because within time, we also have to look at, how that plays. If you have 2-point-something million people voting and no governor has been returned for more than 300,000 people, that's a huge challenge.
In Anambra, the business community in Anambra is not even interested in politics. Those who do voting are all these hired persons, the Iboros and
They
what
talk
have you.
about it, but they don't vote.
Osaze Uzi, sir, the Anambra election, as some people have described it, is going to be a litmus test, for INEC with respect to the 2023 election, and perhaps other elections that will come before the 2023 election, right? Now, with what is playing out in the state at the moment, how would INEC position itself? You have talked about the issue of, when the parties now nominate different candidates, parallel primaries and all of that will produce 2 candidates and what have you. How would INEC, be able to meander around this to see, look, when a party finally says this is our candidate, then INEC will prepare to work with that candidate. How will INEC play this game now? Because as it stands, if the parties come up with the factions and all of that, and elections will go on, you're not going to change the date of the election. So what will be the position of INEC, in trying to say, look, this is authentic candidates we're going to deal with in a particular party?
Well, I no longer work for INEC, so I don't know what the official position will be.
But from your experience,
from antecedents, I think they'll wait for, if there are conflicting court orders, as there are already in 1 or 2 of the political parties, then it will continue to fill the candidates. But next couple of, within a week of receipt of the list, it has to publish the personal particulars of the candidates. There will be a challenge if there are 2 conflicting candidates. So the choice is either to publish both of them or to withhold it. But if it's at the time of declaration of results and the particular party has not resolved its legal issues, then it will withhold giving certificate to either of the claimants until judicial intervention. We know the outcome of that judicial intervention. So whatever the Bishop court says, fine. If at the end of the day, the recall with Zamfara that Dr. Hamisu made reference to as a classic example, INEC recognized one because we thought we monitored that thing, although the monitoring itself does not validate that process. It does not in itself validate that process. That's also part of why I say it's a very weak regulatory body. It will keep dealing with that faction, but the High Court in Zamfara gave an order which contradicted the High Court of the FCT. So at a stage, INEC just hands over and said, let us await the judicial pronouncement. The Court of Appeal validated Zamfara judgment. So we said, okay, we gave them the list based on what that court said. But of course, the case went to the Supreme Court and said, no, you made a mistake. So INEC withdraw those certificates and give it to the party that came next. This one, it just disqualified both factions that were satisfied that no primaries were conducted. So say you have nobody. So it's the next party which scored very little compared to that other party that got its
Then what is the
candidate.
relevance of monitoring of primaries by INEC?
Good question. Very good question. You have to ask the lawmakers that. Because it's statutory. It's law. The Electoral Act says you go and monitor. They should give you 21 days notice. If they don't give you 21 days notice, it doesn't say it invalidates the process. It says that you can still go. You don't now wait for notice. You should go and monitor. The effect is that INEC just goes there and writes a report. Where it does monitor, it writes its report. Either party can, any person at all can ask for that report. Now, what the usefulness of that report comes in judicial proceedings. You now tender that report to see what happened. Because INEC being an arbiter, being an observer, being a referee, as it were, you tend to believe in the idea is that it has no interest in the outcome. Its report will be a fair reflection of what transpired in the primaries. So you use that report as a factual basis for delivering the judgment of the court. In the 2004 electoral reform bill that went before the National Assembly, INEC proposed that the outcome of that primaries is monitored. That should determine who the rightful candidate is. But when it got to the National Assembly, that was watered down and changed. So in 2006 Electoral Act, which is still being maintained up till now, and that regarding this provision, just says that you just go there and you just monitor. The use, in interpretation by the courts, the use of the utility of that of that report is that it helps the court to determine what transpired. That's all.
It must be very expensive for INEC to be either a defendant or respondent in all of these cases. I mean, because they will drag you here, drag you there. Pre-election matters, so they can linger for 3 years, 6 months, or 3 years, 9 months, you know, even after the election, and so on and so forth. As I said, it must be very expensive for INEC to be responding to all of these issues. But it was Zamfara that you mentioned, and then we also had APC in Rivers in 2019. Yes. I mean, the presumption was that lessons would have been learned from what happened, but the way Anambra is unfolding, it appears that we're virtually back to square one. What do you think?
Two things. First of all, let me start with that point. I think Kieran made a point earlier. Anambra is peculiar. I think every state thinks they are peculiar. So they don't learn lessons from the antecedents that follow it. Oh, well, this is not, and you are from Edo, and you heard this phrase, Edo isn't Lagos, it did not be Lagos, it did not be Imo. So everybody thinks they are peculiar, their own is different, their own will be different. They don't seem to learn those lessons at all. And it doesn't help our process in one little bit, it doesn't. But by the way, pre-election matters there's constitutional limitations on hearing of all pre-election matters now due to one of the amendments to the Constitution.
All right. You know, one would have thought really that, the monitoring of primaries by INEC would authenticate, whatever candidate that emerged from the party. But if it is not,
to create a new power, there is also a challenge with that. I think Barrister Uzi can attest to the fact that we transitioned from somewhere to get to the point, because power used to be in INEC at a point, if I remember vividly, where INEC could disqualify, could raise all of those. But we created new power house within INEC. So in wanting to cure one malady, we run into another one. So it's for us to tinker through.
Okay. During the military transition era, they used to announce the disqualification on air.
All right, we have to conclude this segment of our conversation this morning. We'd like to appreciate our guests who made it possible for us to dissect this very important topic. Oluwole Osaze Uzi, former Director of Voter Education and Publicity, INEC. We thank you for coming this morning. Ezenwa Nwago, Chairman Partners for Electoral Reform and Convener, Say No Campaign, Nigeria. It's been a pleasure talking to you this morning. And Dr. Abdul Rahman Abu Hamisu, a public affairs analyst, it's been wonderful sharing your thoughts with us on Good Morning Nigeria for today. Thank you indeed. All right, the program is Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of the